we have the opportunity to show other farms how easy it is. And we are already starting to see a lot of the effects of the way that we're farming. We're starting to see crops that are doing better after following like a legume cover crop. It's really cool being able to see the results of what we're trying out.
The farmers now who are farming thousands of acres aren't farming the same system we do here. And there's sort of two reasons for that. One is we've only got 30 some acres, not 3,000. And also because we have other priorities in terms of the environment and the quality of food that gets produced and how it's produced. So we're doing a different system of farming here than the current system that's being used on big farms.
There's a few practices that are really important to us here at the farm and that we take into account in everything that we do. One of those things is that we really care about the health of our soils. We believe and we know that our soils are alive. They're full of microbes, they're full of funguses, they're full of insects and everything that helps our plants grow. So we like to keep the soil covered with plants at all times. We like to have living roots in our soils. So when we don't have a commodity crop in the ground, we plant cover crops to help with that, and that helps prevent erosion. It's also going to help with nutrient loss from leaching, and it's going to really help the structure of our soil and help maintain all the healthy life that's in there. So a legume is one type of cover crop that we use, particularly clover is a really common one we use for a cover crop, but a legume is a plant that fixes nitrogen. So it takes nitrogen in from the air and it gets these little nitrogen nodules on the roots and it puts that back in the soil for us.
That's one of the other approaches we do here. We're trying to mimic nature, lots of diversity. We don't have to buy nitrogen fertilizer if we can take it out of the air here and grow it. So that's part of our historical rotation. They used to always have clovers and soybeans. It's one of the cash crops too, is still like you. So we want to intersperse those with grass crops, but part of it is to reduce the impact on the environment. It's not to have to mine so many minerals, not to have to use petroleum to create nitrogen fertilizer. If we do the right plants here, we can make our own fertilizer just out of the air.
Something that I think is really interesting about the way we're farming and the things we're doing here is that it's almost like we are returning to the way that we were farming a long time ago. We're using the similar rotations, we're using very little inputs, and some of the food that we grow in our rotation, we keep here on the farm to grind our own feed for our livestock. So it's cool to kind of see us complete that circle. All of our animal waste and bedding also stays here on the farm. It's taken to a windrow compost where it is composted down, and we do have plans to eventually use that in our gardens.
In the conventional system now, this all shifted after Jim retired, and I've seen in my lifetime, is when we had diversified farms. They had crops as well as livestock. And now all the animals are big feedlots or inside of buildings. So then the grain is shipped to them. And then the manure is there, and it's not where the field crops are. So then you've got this huge system of it's a linear system. It's not a cycle. So then you end up with waste products, which shouldn't be a waste product. You've got hog lagoons full of manure that in North Carolina, that when the storms come, they all go down the stream, the dikes break. So all that nutrients that came from the hogs eating the grain are lost. So we're trying to mimic that with keeping the animals and the feed here. The manure goes back to the land. Keep the cycle tight, close, mimic nature. I mean, Gorman Farm it's too small to make a drop in the bucket of the amount of food that's produced, but the educational component is huge because people can vote with what kind of food they buy, but they also vote, with representatives and people tell them and say, well, you can't grow enough food organically. You you have to use poisons, you have to use genetically modified crops, and that's really not true. So if they can see a different way, that then they can support legislation, and when we put tax money into the farm bill, and if we want to get back to a less carbon footprint that affects climate change, the farming community is going to have to change, use fewer inputs, less tillage, more natural practices if we're ever going to get a hold of climate change. And the carbon has to go back into the soil. And that can be done as people put pressure on the farming community and the legislators to do that. And we can show them here.
I'm really excited about the way that we're farming. We're teaming with biology, we're taking care of our land, and I'm excited to be able to show people that this is possible. And it's not only is it possible, but it's productive and it can be profitable. And we're restoring the health of our soils and our land through farming, which isn't something that people typically associate agriculture with sustainability. But it can be, and we're headed that way. So that's really exciting to me. I think there's a lot of educational opportunities in the future that I'm really excited to share.